Nobody expected this simple airport goodbye to become one of the most emotional moments ARMY would talk about for days. As Taehyung prepared to leave for Madrid, he quietly leaned closer to Jungkook and whispered a final message. It seemed like an ordinary exchange between two people who had shared countless moments together. But just seconds later, something unexpected happened. Jungkook suddenly looked confused. The message was gone. Whatever Taehyung had just said, Jungkook couldn't remember it. What happened next completely changed the atmosphere at the airport. Jungkook's reaction caught everyone off guard, and the brief goodbye quickly turned into an emotional moment that no one saw coming. Then came an apology followed by a hug that seemed to say far more than words ever could. But what was the message Taehyung whispered before leaving for Madrid? And why did that forgotten sentence lead to a moment that left so many ARMY members emotional? The answer may not be what anyone expected. Jeon Jungkook stood frozen for a moment after the hug ended. The airport around them remained as busy as ever. Suitcases rolled across the polished floor. Announcements echoed through the terminal. Fans watched from a distance, trying to understand why what seemed like a simple goodbye suddenly felt so emotional. But for Jeon Jungkook, none of those sounds mattered. Only one thing occupied his mind. What had Kim Taehyung whispered? Just minutes earlier, the message had been crystal clear. Kim Taehyung had leaned closer, spoken softly, and smiled. Then somehow it vanished. The harder Jeon Jungkook tried to remember, the more frustrated he became. He replayed the moment repeatedly. Kim Taehyung's eyes, his voice, the way he smiled afterward. Everything was clear except the actual words. And that was what bothered him most, because Kim Taehyung wasn't someone who spoke carelessly, especially not during moments like this. The two stood facing each other again after the hug. Neither said much. Sometimes silence carried more meaning than conversation ever could. Kim Taehyung adjusted the strap on his bag and glanced toward the departure gate. Time was running out. The final boarding call could happen at any moment. Yet neither seemed ready to walk away. Fans nearby noticed something unusual. Kim Taehyung kept looking back at Jeon Jungkook, not once, not twice, again and again, almost as if he was waiting for something or hoping for something. Meanwhile, Jeon Jungkook appeared unusually distracted. His smile looked forced. His thoughts were elsewhere. The forgotten message continued haunting him. Then suddenly, a possibility crossed his mind. What if the message wasn't because of the words themselves? What if it mattered because of why Kim Taehyung had chosen that exact moment to say it? The realization sent a strange feeling through him. His chest tightened. For years, countless memories had connected them. Years of schedules. Years of performances. Years of challenges. Years of victories. Yet departures never became easier. Perhaps that was why this moment felt different. Perhaps that was why forgetting those words felt so painful, because somewhere deep inside, Jeon Jungkook feared he had missed something important. Something he might never get another chance to hear. Kim Taehyung finally took a step backward, then another. The distance between them slowly widened. Most people would have simply waved goodbye. Instead, Kim Taehyung stopped. He looked directly at Jeon Jungkook for several seconds. Neither moved, neither spoke. Then Kim Taehyung smiled again. This time the smile was smaller, softer, almost bittersweet. And for reasons Jeon Jungkook couldn't explain, that smile hurt more than the forgotten message itself. A member of the staff approached Kim Taehyung and gently reminded him about boarding. The moment could not be delayed any longer. Kim Taehyung nodded. He turned toward the gate. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Then something unexpected happened. Jeon Jungkook suddenly called his name. Not loudly, just enough for Kim Taehyung to hear. Kim Taehyung stopped immediately. He turned around. The entire atmosphere shifted. Even those watching from afar seemed to sense that something important was about to happen. Jeon Jungkook took a deep breath. His eyes showed both embarrassment and regret. "I'm sorry." The words came out quietly, yet everyone nearby could feel their weight. Kim Taehyung looked confused. Jeon Jungkook laughed nervously, a laugh that sounded more emotional than happy. Then he admitted it again. He still couldn't remember. No matter how hard he tried, the message was gone. For a second, Kim Taehyung simply stared at him. Then something surprising happened. Instead of disappointment, Kim Taehyung started laughing. A genuine laugh, the kind that instantly eased tension, the kind that made Jeon Jungkook smile despite everything. For the first time since the forgotten message, the atmosphere became lighter, but only briefly, because what Kim Taehyung said next caused Jeon Jungkook's smile to fade once more. It wasn't the words that mattered. The response came calmly, almost casually, yet it hit harder than anything else. Jeon Jungkook blinked. What do you mean? Kim Taehyung didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the boarding gate again, then back at Jeon Jungkook. His expression had changed. The teasing smile was gone. Something deeper remained. Something impossible to ignore. The important part, Kim Taehyung began, then stopped, as if reconsidering whether he should continue. Several seconds passed. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. Finally, Kim Taehyung smiled again, but this time there was mystery behind it. The important part was whether you'd remember it. Jeon Jungkook froze. The answer only created more questions. Remember what? Why? What was hidden inside those words? Before he could ask anything else, the final boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Kim Taehyung glanced toward the gate one last time. Now there was no choice. He had to leave. But as he turned away, Jeon Jungkook noticed something. Something he hadn't seen before. A small folded note partially visible inside Kim Taehyung's jacket pocket. Just a corner. Nothing more. Yet the sight instantly caught his attention. Why would Kim Taehyung carry a handwritten note during a trip? And why did it look strangely familiar? Kim Taehyung disappeared toward the gate before Jeon Jungkook could ask, leaving behind unanswered questions, leaving behind a forgotten message, and leaving behind one mystery that would continue following Jeon Jungkook long after the plane to Madrid had already taken off. Because several hours later, after Kim Taehyung's flight was already in the air, Jeon Jungkook would discover something shocking. Something connected to that folded note. Something that would completely change his understanding of the message he thought he had forgotten. And when he finally learned the truth, he would realize that Kim Taehyung had never expected him to remember the words at all. Jeon Jungkook stared at his phone long after Kim Taehyung's plane had departed. The airport was already behind him. The crowds were gone. The noise had faded. Yet, his mind remained trapped inside that final conversation. Or more accurately, inside the conversation he couldn't remember. Hours passed. He returned home. Tried watching videos. Tried listening to music. Tried distracting himself with anything. Nothing worked. Every attempt led him back to the same question. What had Kim Taehyung whispered? The strange thing was that he could remember everything else with perfect clarity. The exact moment Kim Taehyung approached him, the way his voice softened, the expression in his eyes, even the small smile that followed. Everything remained vivid. Everything except the words. As midnight approached, Jeon Jungkook finally gave up trying to sleep. His thoughts were becoming louder, more persistent, almost as if his memory was trying to tell him something. Then suddenly his phone vibrated. A message. His heart skipped. For a brief second, he hoped it was Kim Taehyung. It wasn't. Instead, it was one of the staff members who had been at the airport earlier. Attached to the message was a photograph. Nothing unusual at first glance. Just a random airport picture taken before departure. Jeon Jungkook almost ignored it. Then he noticed something. The folded paper. The same folded paper sticking out from Kim Taehyung's jacket pocket. The image had captured it clearly. His eyes narrowed. Why did that paper feel familiar? He zoomed in. Again. And again. The quality wasn't great. But it was enough. Enough to reveal a small handwritten symbol near one corner. A tiny doodle. Simple. Insignificant. Yet the moment Jeon Jungkook saw it, a forgotten memory rushed back. Years ago, during a break between schedules, Kim Taehyung had developed a habit of drawing that exact symbol whenever he wanted to remember something important. Not for fans, not for social media, only for himself. It was his personal reminder, a marker, a signal. Whenever that symbol appeared, it meant one thing. The contents mattered a lot. Jeon Jungkook sat upright. Now he was even more curious. What was inside that note? And why had Kim Taehyung carried it all the way to the airport? The questions multiplied, yet answers remained nowhere in sight. Then another memory surfaced, one he hadn't thought about in years. There had been another note once, a long time ago, back when schedules were overwhelming and exhaustion followed them everywhere. Kim Taehyung had quietly written something down and handed it to Jeon Jungkook. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, at least not on the surface. But Jeon Jungkook had kept that note for months because sometimes simple words carried unexpected weight. The realization sent chills through him.
Could this be connected?
Could the folded paper have something to do with that forgotten moment? Before he could think further, another notification appeared. This time it was from social media. Airport photos had begun spreading rapidly. Fans were discussing the hug, the apology, the strange emotional atmosphere. Everyone seemed to be asking the same question. Why had the goodbye felt so different? Jeon Jungkook scrolled silently. Post after post. Theory after theory. Nobody knew the truth, not even him. And that fact frustrated him more than anything, because he had been standing right there. Yet somehow he knew less than everyone else. His eyes drifted toward the window. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the darkness. Somewhere above the clouds, Kim Taehyung was probably sleeping on the flight. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was thinking about the same conversation, the same forgotten message, the same unanswered mystery. Hours later, unable to rest, Jeon Jungkook opened an old storage box. He wasn't entirely sure what he was looking for. Only that instinct kept pushing him forward. Inside were photographs, passes, old souvenirs, random memories collected through the years. Then suddenly his hand froze. At the very bottom sat a small envelope, dust-covered, forgotten. His heartbeat accelerated, because he recognized the handwriting instantly. Kim Taehyung's. For several seconds, he simply stared at it. The envelope had never been opened. Not once. How is that possible? Jeon Jungkook couldn't remember receiving it. Yet there it was, waiting, almost as if it had been hidden specifically for this moment. Slowly, he opened it. Inside was a single folded page. The paper had yellowed slightly with age. The writing remained clear. His eyes moved across the first line, then the second, then the third. The expression on his face changed immediately.
Shock.
Confusion. Disbelief. The contents weren't what he expected. Not even close. Because the note mentioned something that had happened years before. One Jeon Jungkook had completely forgotten. A promise connected directly to Kim Taehyung and somehow connected to Madrid. His pulse quickened. The coincidence felt impossible. How could a forgotten note from years ago suddenly connect to the exact conversation they had shared at the airport? The more he read, the more unsettling it became. Near the bottom of the page was a date, a specific future date, one that meant absolutely nothing when the note had originally been written. But now, years later, that same date was only days away. Jeon Jungkook looked at it repeatedly, certain he was misunderstanding. Yet the numbers never changed. The date remained the same. And according to the note, something important was supposed to happen when that day arrived. Something Kim Taehyung had apparently planned to remind him about. The room suddenly felt silent. Too silent. A strange realization slowly began forming. What if the airport message wasn't random? What if Kim Taehyung wasn't reminding him of something new? What if he was reminding him of something old? Something they had both nearly forgotten? Jeon Jungkook immediately reached for his phone. His fingers hovered above Kim Taehyung's contact. He wanted answers immediately. But before he could call, another notification appeared. This time the sender's name made his stomach drop. It was Kim Taehyung. A new message sent only seconds ago from somewhere between countries and time zones. Jeon Jungkook opened it instantly. The message contained only one sentence. One sentence that changed everything. One sentence that made his heart pound harder than ever before. It read, "Did you finally find a note?" Jeon Jungkook froze because that meant Kim Taehyung knew. He knew about the envelope. He knew Jeon Jungkook would eventually discover it. And somehow he had been expecting this exact moment all along. But what terrified Jeon Jungkook wasn't the message itself. It was what appeared underneath it. A second message. Unopened. Waiting. A message Kim Taehyung had scheduled weeks before ever stepping into that airport. And whatever was written inside seemed to hold the real answer behind the forgotten words. The answer Jeon Jungkook had been searching for since Madrid parted their goodbye. With trembling hands, he stared at the unopened message, knowing that once he read it, nothing would feel the same again. Jeon Jungkook kept staring at the unopened message. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Still, he couldn't bring himself to tap it. The feeling was strange. Part of him desperately wanted answers. The other part feared what those answers might reveal. Because everything about this situation felt planned. Too planned. Kim Taehyung had known about the envelope. He had known Jeon Jungkook would eventually find it. And somehow he had prepared a message in advance. Weeks before Madrid. Weeks before the airport goodbye. Weeks before the forgotten whisper. Nothing about that felt accidental. Finally, Jeon Jungkook inhaled deeply and opened the message. The screen loaded. A few seconds later, words appeared. Simple words. But they instantly sent chills through his body. If you're reading this, it means you forgot again. Jeon Jungkook blinked. Again? The word immediately caught his attention. Again. Not forgot. Forgot again. He continued reading. I knew there was a chance you wouldn't remember. That's why I prepared this. A nervous laugh escaped him. Of only Kim Taehyung would predict something like this. Yet, the more he read, the less amused he felt because the message slowly became more serious. Do you remember the promise we made years ago? Jeon Jungkook's eyes moved back to the old note lying beside him. The same promise, the same mystery, the same date. Everything was connected. He continued, I didn't remind you because I wanted an answer. I reminded you because I wanted to know whether you still carried it somewhere in your heart. The room became silent again. Jeon Jungkook lowered the phone. Something about those words felt heavier than expected. Not because they were dramatic, because they were honest. Painfully honest. He suddenly remembered countless moments throughout the years. Moments that seemed small at the time. Late-night conversations, long flights, quiet hotel rooms, conversations nobody else ever heard. So many memories had disappeared beneath years of schedules and responsibilities. Maybe that was normal. Maybe everyone forgot things eventually. Yet, somehow Kim Taehyung had remembered. Every detail, every promise, every unfinished conversation. Jeon Jungkook picked up the old note again. His eyes settled on the date. The closer he looked, the more memories returned. Slowly, fragment by fragment, like pieces of a broken photograph. Then suddenly he remembered where they had been. A rooftop years ago,